So let's move on to talk about, the data science portfolio. I'll do a recap. This is we're actually we've been I think this is this sixth topic we've been going through. We talked about data science learning path. We also talked about how we had a career discussion, and today we're talking about how to build data science portfolio. But let's have a quick recap. Um, there are different kinds of data scientists. This is just a recap, so I'll go through this quickly. I think there are different kinds of data scientists: operational level, ML researchers, machine learning engineers, and also data science product managers. Most of the data science jobs out there are operational level. So those are operational DS jobs. The focus is on data wrangling, working with large or smaller messy data. You need to know how to build machine learning or predictive models, discover insight from data. But most of these jobs are actually helping the companies make better data-driven decisions. The data scientists working on those teams don't always need to deploy the machine learning model in production, or you're not going to get a request to design a new algorithm for this kind of problems. Sometimes it pops up, but most of the time you're leveraging existing tools to help solve data challenges. That's maybe 70 to 80% of the data jobs out there. The second kind is machine learning researcher. So the focus will be more on research and designing new algorithms. So the work you do might become the intellectual property of the company. Machine learning engineering is the third type of data scientist job. The title sometimes is not data scientist, um, but the focus is more on model deployment and how to scale your machine learning models. So when it comes to skill set requirement, Apache Spark, TensorFlow, PyTorch might require, be pretty high on the list. But you also need to understand the software engineering and development principles, understanding how to build APIs and how to automate data pipelines. So those are the skills that are important for machine learning engineering. And the last type of data scientist is data science project manager. So project managers will focus on product strategies, but these are not the traditional product managers because they do understand and appreciate the data science process. So they're helping the companies to build better data products. And so the product manager's requirement is that you need to understand the foundations of data science and machine learning, also need to speak the same language. So you can talk to the data team and engineering team at the same time. So your daily work probably don't really involve building machine learning models, but product managers playing a really important role in terms of turning a data science project into a successful product. So if you happen to come from business side or you're a data scientist already, product manager or product owner might be a really good career path for you as well. These are some of the data science skills we would recommend you to have in order to get a data science job. We talked about this, in the previous session, so I'll go through them quickly today. From a coding perspective, I think Linux command line is very important. Understanding, operating system, but you don't need to be a Linux administrator. You don't have to come from computer science background. But I think understanding the basic, commonly used command line tools will be very helpful, especially when it comes to, working with cloud computing, AWS cloud, for example. Programming, Python, Scala, Java. But if you are just getting started, I think focusing on Python is the right strategy. It's always good to learn more or know more different programming languages. But if you want to get a data science job, I think Python is right now the most popular programming language. SQL is very important as well. But you need to know a little bit more than just writing SQL queries, maybe optimizations, and understanding the database internals sometimes will help as well. Version control is also very important. And when it comes to platforms and frameworks, Cloud computing, I would recommend, a job applicant to know at least one cloud platform, AWS or Azure or GCP. I think it doesn't matter which one you pick. AWS is still the biggest, cloud provider, public cloud provider, but Azure is kind of popular in among the banks. Google Cloud, a lot of retail, companies use Google Cloud. Maybe you can do a little bit research and to see the companies you're interested, what is the platform they use, and maybe you can focus on that. Knowing big data is definitely going to be very helpful. It helps you improve, I think, enhance your portfolio and your resume for sure. Containerization, understanding Docker, helps you, deploy machine learning models in containers, so you can work with SageMaker and those kind of tools. So I think that would be helpful as well. When it comes to machine learning, I think a lot of you probably already know some machine learning. So these are just packages, right? NumPy, SciPy to manipulate data, doing numeric computing, know how to explore data using visualization packages, machine learning packages, scikit-learn, Keras, feature preparation, natural language processing. But when it comes to learning machine learning, I think you also need to focus on the use cases. Mm, and yeah, it's important to understand, how machine learning is applied in the retail industry. You need to at least understand 3 to 4 different use cases. Um, or if you, before you go to an interview with a company, do some research on that industry. So you know what kind of data challenges they will be solving, they're facing. That will be very helpful as well. And visualization. So storytelling is also very important. If your goal is to get a data science job, I think storytelling basically, I think the most important thing is you need to make sure that you have a portfolio that you can, well prepared, that you can present to the hiring manager or hiring companies. So you're the salesperson for yourself. You need to tell a really strong story about yourself, so the companies want to hire you, right? So, but that includes visualization skills, presentation skills, being able to work with PowerPoint. Um, a lot of students in our bootcamp were required to do PowerPoint presentation on their data projects in the, usually in the final round interviews. So knowing how to structure your PowerPoint presentation is also very important. Okay. I start to see some questions coming in. Um, I will maybe have a quick pause after a few slides so I can address some of the questions and move on. Okay, so bear with me. All right, when it comes to skill set, for data analytics professionals, I think the top skills you need to have: Python, R, SQL. Python and R, I think you can just choose one. It doesn't have to be Python. If you're like R, then just go, stick with R. That's no problem at all. R is very popular as well. But SQL is absolutely important. And Apache Spark and Hadoop, these are big data related skills. We start to see, a lot of data analytics related jobs asking for big data skills as well. So, all right. Now we're going to talk about resumes. And the reason why I want to talk about resumes before I talk about portfolio is I want you to understand what's important on the resume, and then we can talk about portfolio. So this is my personal background. Let me tell you my personal story. I'm the co-founder of WeCloudData. I came into Canada in 2005. I did my grad school in Dalhousie University on the East Coast. So I was in electronic commerce program. So it's not a computer science or statistics, program. But I took a course called marketing analytics, and that course covered SAS programming, and we learned how to build predictive models. So I got really interested in um, data analytics, and then went on to learn a lot of SAS related tools, and that helped me land my first job. And my first job was Rogers, and I did predictive modeling, And that was 10 years ago, so it's probably called machine learning today. But it's very much the same, pretty much the same, just using different tools. So I built predictive modeling models for in the marketing context, upsell, cross-sell, customer lifetime value, segmentation, customer churn. And I learned a lot of business use cases as well. Um, and then I moved on to BlackBerry. I joined as the first data scientist, and later I started to lead the data science team for BBM. I've hired PhDs, postdocs, worked on research projects, published patents, and but I think the biggest fun I had was actually leading the team to conquer some really challenging big data problems. We were dealing with 500 terabyte of new data collected every single day. So that's pretty massive data, hundreds of node, Hadoop cluster. Still had to write Java MapReduce code in the early days, but now, um, Apache Spark is probably a better framework. Um, and then I did some teaching part-time at Rice University. I was the first one to teach the big data course in Chen School. Um, and through that experience, I discovered some, challenges with, a traditional certification program because it wasn't very hands-on, and I wouldn't probably hire the students I taught in those programs into my BlackBerry team, not because they're not great, it's just because the program wasn't, designed to help students really get a job. So that planted seeds at that time, and that's why eventually I decided to run my own training program. I worked 1 year for Kick, which is an awesome company. I learned a lot of cloud computing, big data, dealing with, I think 300 million, customer base. That was the public number. Massive amounts of data. Build APIs for chatbots as well. Um, Great experience. And then I started WeCloudData with my co-founders. We run a consultancy called Beam Data as well. I'm a mentor for a lot of startups at Communitech, but we also help a lot of companies solve their real life challenges as well. So that's my story. I One of my recommendations for job seekers is that you need to have a storyline for yourself when you search for jobs. For me, sometimes it's getting a project or getting a corporate training. So you always need to do storytelling. It will be great if you can look at your resume, figure out what you need to keep, what you don't need to keep. But when it comes to when you're actually in front of a hiring manager, you need to be able to articulate that, um, to present why you're the strongest fit for this role in a minute or two. A lot of times, the hiring decisions are actually made within the first 5 to 10 minutes, and the employers are just spending the rest of the 40 to 50 minutes just trying to validate their assumptions to see if this candidate is the right fit. But a lot of times, the impression you leave in the first 5 to 10 minutes are the most important. All right. So when it comes to resume, skill set is very important, right? So you can gain skills by taking courses, by doing self-learning. So I think these are the skills you need to have on the resume. Maybe not all of these keywords, but make sure you touch on most of these to make sure you qualify for a data science job. But what matters for a resume? These are I wouldn't say these are perfect resume or LinkedIn profiles, but simply based on their experience, I think they'll catch like recruiters' attention, or they're probably getting always get calls from recruiters because they have strong experience, right? If you have worked for BlackBerry as manager of data sciences, you've worked for TD as a senior manager on big data analytics, then the next job for you is probably a director's job in some big companies. But most of us don't have the related experience, right? So I think from a recruiter's perspective, there are different kinds of candidates. Let's say candidate X in this case um, worked as a data analyst for 3 years, and has the right skills. SAS predictive modeling, worked on churn modeling, also has the great education background. So from a recruiter's perspective, I think this candidate has relevant experience, but in order to meet today's data scientist, whatever, definition, um, or job demand, like requirements, you still need to learn new tools. For example, a lot of jobs require Python, big data. So even for candidates like this, still need to upskill themselves. You need to learn more skills. Um, and but recruiters may think that, well, because this candidate has 3 years of experience, so the salary requirement might be high, but you're still lacking some skills. So it probably don't make you the perfect candidate. So we sometimes find that our students, when they join some interviews, like they're competing against, existing, like, experienced data analyst, and some students actually can get the job. And that's because they probably have more relevant skills. So skill set is definitely important. And candidate Y, candidate Y has awesome research background. He has a PhD, and he has done Kaggle competition, and these are really, really great. And I think from a recruiter or hiring manager's perspective, if it's a operational level data science job, then this PhD definitely need to learn SQL. If you happen to be a PhD and you've done research for many years, I'm sure you have the strongest problem solving skills, and you have deep knowledge about machine learning. But real life machine learning or data science jobs involve a lot of SQL. So you do need to, acquire those skills, because that's usually not covered in academic setting. You probably need some more real life experience as well. So I think when it comes to job search, if you have a PhD background, you have an advantage, um, for sure. But there are definitely things you need to, skills you need to gain as well. The last candidate here, probably most of the job seekers and career switchers fits into this category. You do have work experience, but maybe not relevant to a data science job. So maybe you come from mechanical engineering, process engineering, uh, and through self-learning, you know a lot of these tools. You've built strong portfolio. Um, but I think from a hiring manager's perspective, it's the lack of experience, real experience that make you, um, you know, uh, a less strong, like candidate. So you need to do extra to to uh, to show your potential, right? So that's why I think portfolio can be really, really uh, important, because uh, it's really hard for a hiring manager to tell what you can actually do based on the resume, because you can hire professional writers to help you improve the resume. It doesn't mean when you actually work on a real life project, you are the best one, um, to to help the team, right? So portfolios sort of give people the impression that you can actually work on end-to-end projects. So we'll talk about that shortly. And there are different kinds of candidates, right? So some candidate, they're new grad, they have really good grades, but they don't have work experience. That's probably one of the challenges they are facing. So most of the experience is more academic. There are candidates who have experience, but these are career switchers, don't have analytics or data science related background. So how do you write your resume, or how do you build the portfolio in a way that can make you, make your experience stronger? And the last kind of candidate is are actually data analytics professionals already. We already have a lot of students thinking about switching career and moving on to their second data science jobs. So in the market, you have experienced, data professionals, and some of these professionals they use traditional tools such as SaaS, insurance company, pharmaceutical companies, retail. A lot of these big companies use, SaaS. SaaS is an awesome tool. I started my career using SaaS, but we start to see more demand, using open source tools such as Python, Apache Spark, and cloud. So you need to upskill yourself for sure. Otherwise, most of the recruiters will think that you come from that traditional background, so you might not be the best candidate for a data scientist job that require a lot of new skills. Okay, this is one sample resume from one of the students we in our boot camp. This is a one-page resume. You can have one-page or two-page resume. This student has a PhD background, of course, that really helped her. and but she got some real life experience through the boot camp, working on two companies' challenges. But she also had really good, and strong portfolio that she actually used to for demonstration in her interviews. So I think that was really impressive. So I think the right way to structure a resume is that have real experience on the top, and remove some of the irrelevant experience, and right beneath that you should have your data science or personal project, and give more details, and even if you have a blog post, GitHub related to that, include the link as well. um, and we've done some experiment, maybe like 10% of the time, uh, the hiring managers will actually click on those links. So even 10%, I think it's still worth putting your link there, so that you can get a better chance to be noticed, right? All right, so my suggestions for those of you who are building portfolios, from a skills perspective, I think you need to understand what matters and what not, right? Because when you're building a portfolio, you probably need to decide, what is the programming language? Well, I guess Python is a no-brainer, but should you use a cloud, or do you want to do everything on your local computer? What kind of visualization tool you're going to use? What kind of pipeline are you going to use? Apache Spark? Do you need real-time pipeline? And these advanced topics. So understand what are some of the important skills you need to know is important. So I just listed out some of these. I won't talk about them in details, but if you're interested, you can come to our future events on big data. I think we have two big data workshops coming up. These are related to big data and pipelines. Um, on the resumes, keyword matters, right? A lot of companies are going to use some kind of algorithms to do the screening, because I think before COVID-19, an average data science job will have like 150 to 200 maybe applicants. I think in April and May, some of the jobs we've seen, there are like 800, more than 1,000 applicants. Uh, my friend, who's a director at Loblaws Digital, he said, but they posted a job, and data analyst job, senior analyst job. There are like over 1,000 applicants. That was crazy. So they simply don't have enough time to go through all the resumes. So those kind of screening usually happens automatically. So you do need to make sure that you hit the right keywords, right? So yeah, you do need to. So before you apply for a job, right, read the job description and see what some of those key like a skills requirement, and make sure you have those skills right on your resume. You need to understand use cases, as I said at the beginning. For example, if you go to an interview in a retail company, they will probably ask you, what is customer life cycle, how to build churn models, what is the best metric to use, or the commonly popular metrics used in marketing analytics for churn analysis. It's not ROC, it's not accuracy. You need to understand, um, those use cases, but you can gain those knowledge by reading, white papers, some, or by talking to industry professionals and experts if you haven't worked in that environment yet. Okay, so business sense and use cases are also very important. Okay, so we're about to talk about portfolio, um, and the requirements we have for our students is very high. You need to build end-to-end portfolio, meaning that getting a data set from Kaggle and train some machine learning models, doing some fine tuning, even if you can get to the 20%, I don't think that's useful at all. That I used to tell people that's useful, but the market has changed. Working on Kaggle competition, having some online certification is not enough. Those are great, but you need to have those, but you need more. So what kind of portfolio project will make you stand out? Ideally, it's end-to-end, which means it involves data collection. So this is how big data and ETL works in a bank, um, and you basically need to build a project that looks like this. I know it's very hard, but so having someone who can guide you through this process is very important. If you're interested in insurance, it might be a slightly different pipeline. Collecting data and data pre-processing, cleaning, Are you able to build a data warehouse? Well, it's kind of hard if you're collecting data yourself, but can you get some kind of data, sample data, for example, in insurance industry that has at least 5 to 6 tables, data sources, and it can build the entity relationship and uh, diagrams, and then load them into databases and do all the data pre-processing using SQL. That would be very impressive because that's how you do it in real life. No one's going to use Python to manipulate terabytes of data. You're never going to download the data to your laptop. It's always about writing SQL queries. And of course, you can do sampling later once you prepare the data and you have all those features prepared, and then you can train the models using your laptop, unless your company is dealing with really small data set. Um, and of course, machine learning. But you also need to understand how marketing campaigns work. If it's a, let's say marketing related data science project, understand A/B testing, how to select the best customers, how to do data scrubbing, at least understand, what's the best way to do model profiling and understanding those customer segments. Um, and of course, how to deploy this, in a data lake approach. So using Apache Spark to train machine learning models and use Spark streaming for real-time prediction. And can you mimic a project that does some sort of real-life, fraud detection? So it's not just building the models, but deploying real-time data collection using Kinesis and Kafka, and also, uh, after creating the real-time prediction, can you load that into Elasticsearch for real-time monitoring? Because that's how it's done in real life. So talk to experts and get them their suggestions on how to build a real life projects. That involves 8 to 10, maybe 15 different kind of tools. Um, you need to build portfolio that has this level of sophistication in order to stand out. That's I'm not saying this is the best way, but um, I guess my point of view is that everyone knows that you need to build a portfolio. Everyone knows how to do Kaggle competition. It works 5 years ago, but gradually it starts to become less effective strategy. You definitely need to do that to have that experience, but like you need to do everything you can to stand out. Um, so that's why we would recommend you to build more end-to-end projects that even involves building a dashboard. A lot of data scientists feel like oh, that's what data analysts should do. Like I'm not going to be interested in Tableau, but I think it's going to make your portfolio really strong because in real life projects, communication is very important, and sometimes you even need to explain things using Excel pivot table because that's what your business users work with. So those are important. Okay. Certifications are important as well. If you can get AWS certified or GCP certified, I think these will be very helpful. But just use your time wisely, because it looks like for someone who's just starting out, uh, learning all of these skills, uh, building project portfolios is already very time consuming. So whether it's worth the time to get AWS certified, um, it can be debated. But if you have extra, bandwidth, I think getting cloud certified will always help. Even if it don't help you for your first job, it will help you in the long run. So I think getting certified will definitely be helpful. All right, I'm going to take a quick pause to answer some questions, and then we'll move on to the main topic, portfolios. I think some of you might be waiting too long for the portfolio part. Uh, so there's a question. I'm just starting from the top. Do you have to live in Toronto? No, all the courses are online. Um, what is LMS? Oh, Learning Management System. It's just a learning portal. Students will be able to log in to do online quizzes, do interview practice, and watch recordings of the classes. There's a question about will we receive a copy of these slides, a copy of the recording? Yes, the recordings, you can find them on WeCloudData website after this event. Um, uh, yeah, so if you go to the data science diploma program page, it should have about 7 videos covering like introduction to data science, learning path, the, and how to build portfolio, job market, and interview skills as well. There's a question about how important are stored procedures in SQL for ML. I think so. If you're doing stored procedures in SQL, and that's more like data processing, right? It probably has little less to do with machine learning. If you want to automate, machine learning pipelines, you can use Apache Airflow and some other tools. And but some SQL databases, such as Redshift, they support user-defined functions. So if you want to train a machine learning model using scikit-learn, and later on you want to use you want to create a user-defined functions for creating predictions in a relational database, you can do that actually. Okay, so you can create that as a sort of procedures, and then use that for model prediction. So there are many different ways to do that, but that might not be the best way though. So question from Chelsea. Do you recommend simply starting the skills or the courses themselves? Um, I don't really understand the question. But if you don't mind, maybe you can ask the question again. Yes, the recorded session will be available. So which one will be preferred by recruiter and hiring manager? I actually will talk about this. I think, um, but just briefly, talk about that. I think recruiters, and there are different kind of recruiters. Most of the recruiters prefer experienced hire. So, and that's why probably why when you talk to some of the recruiters, they don't think you're experienced enough because recruiter work with a company, right? So they work with sometimes they work with HR, sometimes they work with hiring managers directly. Mm, they're going to do the screening, right? So select the best candidates. So they're getting paid to provide some qualified data, qualified leads. So they will save the hiring manager time. So usually they want to select like, the best candidate already. So they submit one or two candidates to the hiring managers, and hiring managers will go, have interviews. If they're not satisfied, they want more, and then recruiters will submit more, right? So that's why they prefer experienced data scientists or someone who have experience. They usually don't like to work with junior data scientists because it just doesn't help with their business. They want the best candidate with the right, I guess, salary expectation, right? If the candidate is asking for too much, then of course not the best fit. Another reason why recruiters, prefer experienced data scientists is because they're not trained data scientists themselves. I can easily tell who I want to hire into my team. I know someone who has potential. I can train them, but that's not what the recruiter is capable of doing. Most of them, right? Because they don't really understand what a data scientist actually do, and that's why they have to go by experience. Because experience just it's just a safe bet instead of someone who have strong skills but who have never worked in the industry before. There are some recruiters that deal with junior hires, like junior positions out there. You just need to find them. But if you want to reach out to someone on LinkedIn, I would say hiring managers sometimes are busy. They don't respond to you. But recruiters, always talk to recruiters because it's their job, to talk to different kind of candidates. So they usually won't say no. Um, Even if they're not interested in you, you should ask for feedback. Like, what can I improve, in terms of the resume? And they should give you some good suggestions. And they always want to keep, they're always happy to stay in touch because you will become a data scientist a year later. So they will want to work with you. So they never burn the bridges, right? We don't discuss cover letter. Actually, we just briefly talk about resume today because I want to focus, like talk about the importance of portfolios. We do have one session in the new year, I think in January, that to talk about resumes and interview. So we'll have a session on how to prepare for data science interviews. So stay tuned. How to gain cloud experience for recent grad? Well, you just sign up for an AWS account and go through all kinds of training courses. There are training courses online as well. Um, so, for example, I think Code Academy, Cloud Academy. There are a lot of Udemy, Udacity courses. Um, After you learn those skills, cloud skills, you need to understand how to put 5 to 6 different tools you learn together to complete the project. I think that's more important. When it comes to learning cloud computing, just be careful. Amazon can be used for many different purposes. You can use that for DevOps, for security, for solution architect, right? But you probably should learn the data science and analytics side of Amazon Web Services. You don't have to worry too much about other things. So, talk to someone who has the experience, who have, or maybe talk to a data scientist who have a lot of cloud-related experience and ask for their opinion as well. Again, the links will be of the recording can be found on our website. I can share the link later. Okay. Is DS saturated? If someone wants to choose just one DS or data science or data engineering jobs, uh, which one would you recommend? So that's a good question. I wouldn't say DS, data science jobs are saturated. The demand is still huge because um, uh, so we run a consulting company, so we know what kind of companies will need help. For example, supply chain. So recently we've been working with 5 supply chain AI companies. So our students are working on some AI projects, and you can tell those traditional businesses starting to leverage, machine learning. At least they want to build a machine learning roadmap. Um, they want to do more data-driven decision making as well. Um, in mining industry, we have students getting data science jobs at Goldspot, or getting contract jobs for those mining companies, getting paid like really really well, but just doing prototyping. So that means those companies, traditional industry, are starting to realize the importance of AI and data, big data. So yeah, I think the demand for data science skills or talents are going to increase in the future. But I think recently I do start to see more data engineering demand, and that's because you data science will always need data engineering. So if the demand for data science is growing, the demand for data engineering is growing for sure. And a lot of time, when the companies are in their early stage, of their data science or whatever AI journey, the first thing they need to figure out is their data pipelines. It's not really machine learning yet, right? So you have to get the data prepared, get the data pipeline set up before you can do proper machine learning. So that's why the demand for data engineering is really good. But which one to choose depends on like which one is a better fit, I guess. Like you don't choose an industry because it's it has less competition, or you don't choose an industry because it pays better. I think you have to choose based on your passion. Like so my suggestion is learn a little bit data engineering, learn a little bit data science, and decide which one you're more excited about, and talk to many different people. And you can become a data scientist first, and later on you can switch to data engineering as well. So that's not a big problem. Okay, so I think it's time to move on. I still have 3 questions I haven't really addressed, so we can come back and discuss them at the end. Just want to move on because some folks are waiting for the portfolio part. Uh, what should be included in the portfolio? Here's what my opinion. Okay, but so first of all, we're not talking about real life work experience, because I mean, if you have a data scientist work experience, you're not really interested in building portfolio, because hiring managers are interested in your experience, right? So, but whenever you can, try to work on some real projects, right? It could be a freelancer project, or your friend's company, that needs some data help. Like, try to get as close to as real experience as possible. So that's real project. If you can't get real project, personal project becomes much more important, right? So these are the traditional portfolio in the traditional sense, right? Your personal projects could be Kaggle competition, or um, a project that you design yourself, you know, an end-to-end data pipeline. We'll talk about this shortly. Blogs, um, you don't really have to do blogging, but I find that candidates have a good habit of blogging about their even learning journey becomes so much more attractive because it just tells me that this candidate can do well, like can do documentation really well. It can communicate well, can summarize things really well. And blogging helps you prepare for interviews as well. We have a lot of students, they worked on client projects, real projects, and then they go to interview, they fail because they couldn't explain things very well. Like they're very technical. Every time when the hiring manager asks them to explain their project experience, they jump into machine learning right away. That just turns people off. Like they want to understand what project it is, what was the challenge, right? And what was the strategy and what you actually did. But don't jump to step 4 right away. That just tells people, shows people the lack of experience because in real life, it always starts from setting objective and understanding the business problem and priorities, right? So the modeling is usually at a later stage. Sometimes you have to wait months, just to get the data and requirements clear before you move on to the modeling. Okay. So I think blogging will help with that because it forces you to sit down and write everything down, and you have to summarize things, right? um, GitHub. If you can put your code on GitHub, make sure the quality is good. Quality of your code is good, um, and presentation. Okay, so presentation means if you have PowerPoints, related to the personal project you've done, that's great. That means you have presented. Um, and business presentation is very important for at least operational level data scientists. Um, if you're a data scientist working in a consulting company, then you definitely will need to present to the clients. And yeah, so presentation is also very important. Okay. Now, let's talk about the real project first. I think real project experience will give you the biggest advantage. Um, Here are some of the real projects our students are working on or will be working on, just to give you a sense what a real project should look like. If you I hope I can give you some idea, like for example, if because we do have students who have their friends running a small business and they need data help. You can probably go back and talk to your friends and say like, "Can I help you, right, with some data strategy." Um, and a lot of small businesses will actually collect mm, data. So we have a student who runs a family business, selling products on Amazon, and they actually collect a lot of data from through the Amazon AWS AMW or something, like some kind of API to collect all the sales data, and it's actually a relational database that has 11 tables, and you can seriously do a lot of things with that data. And if you have friends that run small businesses, just ask them. Even building some data strategy for them would help. So we have worked on digital analytics, for example, a project that helped a digital marketing agency to scale their digital analytics reporting platform. It's not machine learning, uh, but helping them to migrate all of their Excel data to databases in Amazon, building automated reporting pipeline using Python, and then use Tableau to build out a visualization dashboard. So this is more like a DA project, working with media and publishing companies to build lookalike models for ad revenue optimization has been deployed in production. So we're working with a data engineering team, working with Snowflake and Apache Spark to work with really massive amounts of data, building machine learning models for demographic prediction, and also deploying and fine-tuning model performance in production, doing A/B testing. Just to give you some idea, retail chains build and deploy demand forecasting models for thousands of retail stores. Time forecasting model, it can be ARIMA models, right? Stats models or deep learning models, doing customer segmentation. And recently we're going to start, some exciting projects, autonomous trucking companies doing high-speed lane detection models for city roads to be deployed on autonomous trucks, right? So working with their lead engineers, but helping out building and tuning those deep learning models. Quite exciting stuff. Healthcare, building knowledge graph using graph databases involves, Spark NLP and recommender system. So I think when it comes to real life projects, that's like experiences employers want the most, right? Experience over skills, because a lot of candidates already have skills. But how does a hiring manager tell if you have experience? These are some of the real life interview questions, right? Or the questions that uh, the hiring managers may ask themselves, like, have this candidate worked in a real data science team? What kind of data problem have you solved? So even if you don't work on real life projects, you need to make sure that the data problems you solve cover many different industries, right? If you are going to pick a project to work on in Kaggle, make sure, sorry, let me mute this attendee. So if you want to, spend 3 months working on Kaggle projects and you want to work on three of them, try to choose three different industries, right? Retail, maybe insurance company, but it depends on our interest, of course. So you need to show a range of industry experience. Why do you choose one approach over another? This is, commonly asked questions. Sometimes it's like modeling approach, like why do you choose random forest over logistic regression? And you need to be able to tell the difference, of course. Um, and in your past project, what worked out and what didn't work out? This is commonly asked question as well, because they want to know, like, have you struggled on something? Have you failed on something? Because that's experience. Because you have, of course, the follow-up question is, what have you learned from that? Right? So if you have worked on real life project, then you will be, we'll be able to answer those questions. We have a student who had some real project experience, who had a strong portfolio project as well, personal project as well. And when the hiring manager at Rogers asked him, like, walk us through one of the projects you've done, he said, oh, I worked on some portfolio project. They said, no, 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 we don't care about your portfolio project. Tell us about your real project experience. It just tells you that, if you have real experience, then the portfolio project doesn't, like, the personal project is not that important anymore. But if you don't have real project experience, then I think portfolio project becomes really important. Some more questions that help you, prepare for interviews. Have you worked directly with clients? Well, if you haven't really worked on real life project, that's fine. You have to find your past experience related to that, because I think they're interested in knowing, um, have you ever taken like a real life project or requirements, right? Requests from the client, because usually it's back and forth, clarifying clients, requirements, provide suggestions. Client is not always correct. Sometimes they don't even know how to ask the right question. So those are the experience you have, right? And but if you have worked on some other related experience projects, right? Maybe it's not data science project, but if you can bring your past experience, to an interview, then that will be helpful as well. Okay. Do you know how to understand business? Do you understand business requirements and turn them into technical implementation plans, right? How good is your problem solving skills? Um, do you have experience working in agile team? So that probably means, um, have you worked on like a large scope project where, the project will be divided into small chunks and you manage that using, agile project management style, right? So experience is important. Here's one example. Let's say we have two candidates. Candidate A has personal project and candidate B has a little bit real life client project experience. Then candidate B will clearly stand out. That's what we found out based on our experience. Okay. But not everyone will have, real life experience, because if you have real life experience, you probably already get a job offer. So if you want to work on personal project, here's the suggestion. We often got questions about like which project I should work on. So I think I personally recommend, selecting project based on domain, right? Um, do you want to work for an insurance company, or you're open to any industry, as long as you get a data science job? But then maybe pick a project from retail, a project from banking, a project from, I don't know, e-commerce or something like that. Or if you have three projects, you have time to work on three projects, two projects will focus on industry and one project will be something you're really keen on. It could be build things not directly. It could be research project, but you should definitely at least work on two industry related projects, or at least the data set is coming from like a real business, right? And you can find lots of those data sets from Kaggle as well. Okay, so you need to have a clear motivation, because when you go to interviews and the insurance company hiring manager is going to ask you, so tell me why do you pick this project? A lot of students got asked this kind of questions because they want to know, is it because it's just a Kaggle competition, or you have particular interest in insurance data set, right? So the motivation is important, and then you select the industry and just be more specific, in terms of because I think if you choose finance or retail banking, right? But retail banking, they have a lot of data problems. There's fraud or risk team, right? Credit scoring, marketing analytics, compliance analytics, wealth analytics, robo advisor. So which one are you going to pick? Right? So be more specific. Don't be too generic. Step two, data collection. Right? So I think ideally, if you can collect your own data, that would be great. But I know like collecting banking data, it's hard to collect real-time banking data. But if you can, I think writing your own data collection piece will always be impressive. Okay, whether it's data scraping or using some existing APIs to collect stock price data, whatever, Twitter data, and then after you collect the data, the next thing you need to do is data cleaning, but also label your data. If you want to do sentiment analysis, how do you collect label? Are you going to do that manually? Are you going to leverage the Google API? Are you going to use crowdsourcing Mechanical Turks by working with their APIs? That'll be even more impressive because that's how real life projects are done, right? If possible, can you load the 5 data set, whatever CSV files, into SQL databases and use SQL to do data preparation, data cleaning? That's how real life projects are done. You're not going to use Python to merge all those data. That means if everything you've done is in Python, you probably haven't really worked with big data, right? And make sure you do a lot of exploration, visualization as well. Okay. Machine learning is the magic here, right? So algorithms, parameter tuning, these are just, like I think what everyone can do. So selecting the metrics, interpretation, model interpretation is also very important, okay? And then storytelling, okay? Don't just end your portfolio project, by training some models and upload your Jupyter notebook to GitHub. Tell stories, right? What is the business problem you're trying to solve? Can you provide some business suggestions? Can you build a dashboard to explain the model and data set? Can you write some project summary, do a presentation? One way to, I don't know if it's going to work out, but like if you want to do the cold calling or reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, instead of asking someone to refer you to a job, maybe say, I did this, interest in data project, would you be okay if I present the project to you? I think, senior managers and directors, they're usually very busy. If you ask them for something, they're not interested, because you probably have the wrong intention. But a lot of these folks, in senior positions, they're actually interested in providing mentorship because they feel, fulfilled if they help someone with their career. So maybe you can say, I prepared this presentation. I would like to get some suggestions. That's more meaningful, conversation, right? All right, importance of personal projects. As I said, if you have real life client project experience, that's the best. But if you can't get real life project, and if you're a new grad, for example, so if your 2 candidates have the same education, skills, background, someone who have personal project experience is definitely going to stand out more compared to someone who only have certifications. I don't find Udemy, Coursera, Udacity, or certifications you get from training boot camps very useful. Even certifications from WeCloudData. I just don't think it means anything. It means you've taken some courses, but that's not what hiring managers need. They need someone who can get the work done. So show them the projects and present that in a way. So I think the best way is maybe if you have GitHub, share the link with people. If you have blog posts, that's better. Even better if you can build a real-time fraud detection pipeline and you have a real-time fraud detection visualization dashboard using Kibana and Elasticsearch or whatever Amazon QuickSight. That'll be impressive because when you send people a link, they will be able to see the entire pipeline, working in action, right? So that would be my suggestion. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, the real life pipeline. Building your own data ingestion, pipeline. So collecting data yourself using Kafka, or it doesn't have to be Kafka, but for example, Kinesis, Firehose. Okay. See if we can mimic the data lake using Hadoop and Hive. The data doesn't have to be massive, and have your BI route, right? Build in the dashboard, but also train machine learning model using Spark tools and deploy that to run in real time. Okay. I've seen directors, of data science team writing blog posts to talk about this kind of, pipeline. So if you can build that as a candidate, you'll definitely impress people. I would like if I would build something similar or even better and send my link to that director who blogged about this pipeline, and he will definitely get interested in me, right? So sorry. All right. So some sample like pipelines. I think you need to be a data science architect. Um, is probably not an official like title, but I strongly think that data scientists need to understand the big picture instead of just machine learning and data analytics. So understanding the entire pipeline is important. Okay. This is so, and make sure you can demo your project, right? So data science portfolio should be about storytelling. We have this is from a student who built some kind of real life Twitter sentiment analysis pipeline, and she hosted this in the cloud, right? AWS cloud using Elasticsearch, and machine learning is done elsewhere using Spark, but she ingested data into Elasticsearch and visualized that using Kibana, and you can do real time, right, visualization using Kibana. This is a project done many years ago, but yeah, that helped her get her first data scientist job. Not the only reason, but certainly that was very impressive. Um, and know how to create diagrams, like this. This is not the perfect one, but if you can tell people how you architect your data science project, I think that would be very impressive. Some data science interviews ask for whiteboarding, right? So walk me through the whole process. Um, so you need to be familiar with some like diagramming tools. You can do a Google search. There are a lot of good ones out there. Draw.io is one of them. Um, but that's another way to tell your stories, right? So, and data science or machine learning should always just be part of it, okay? And show consistency. If you decide to use GitHub, maybe the one at the bottom is not what I would recommend. This basically just tells me that this candidate is preparing for interviews. So he just uploaded all the code. So this is no difference from storing all the code and portfolio in a Google Drive. You're just not a GitHub user. You don't have that habit. So make sure you use that frequently, right? So and people can tell. If you can blog, that would be great. I think it's a great way to show your passion. Sometimes you just need to convince the hiring managers that you're really passionate about the things they do, and in the tell. So I think blogging is one way to do that. But all of these will be a lot of effort. You can definitely pick the ones that you think you have the time to commit on. You don't have to do all of these, but if you can, I think you'll definitely get a data science job. Right? Your effort will definitely pay off. These are just some of the Medium blog posts by our students. You can go check them out. Yeah, some of these are really awesome. All right. So my suggestions, we're almost at the end of it. I think a decent portfolio is the minimum requirement nowadays for job search. If you only have taken a few courses and you have some keywords on your resume, chance is very low, because we have dealt with hundreds of students. We know, like, if you don't have a strong portfolio, it's even hard to get interviews. So try to get a good mentor. Maybe it's your friend. Reach out to someone on LinkedIn, but you should always provide something. I guess, like when you knock on someone's door, maybe you need to bring a bottle of wine, right? So in this case, you're asking for mentorship. You should at least have a portfolio already, and then you ask for suggestions. I think a lot of people will want to provide suggestions. So yeah, and and of course, nothing beats real experience. As I said, freelance work, um, and maybe one of your friends, is running some small businesses. That may help as well. Just go talk to your friend and see if you can help him with some data strategy if they have data collected, and that will be even better, right? All right, I think that's it. Just at the end, we talked about the WeCloudData offerings. We provide real life project experience. Our placement rate is 89% within 6 months after graduation. That's the number we have prior to um, COVID-19, and during COVID-19, it's about 71%. And I want to show you some numbers. So first of all, the median salary is pretty decent. It's 65,000, and during COVID-19, it's around 70,000. Came down a little bit. It's kind of hard to negotiate salaries nowadays and during COVID-19. Some examples, Brigu, he used to be a game developer. He's a new immigrant. He had 8 interviews. His biggest challenge was resume. I think he has awesome background, especially he had a development background. And he's built his portfolio, worked on real life projects. And there were about 2 months he don't get any interviews. But after we helped him with the resumes, several revisions, he finally started to get a lot of interviews. So yeah, sometimes resume you just need to keep modifying, because after you apply for 50 jobs and you don't hear back, that's usually it usually means that your resume has some problems. So you have to keep changing that. Now he's a senior analyst. Even though the title is senior analyst, he's basically just doing machine learning engineering work at IGM. It's a referral. We have student Union from accounting background. She has worked as accountant for 2 years, working on taxation, no coding background at all. She's got 8 interviews. And the main reason she can actually get interviews is because if you look at her original resume, there's no way she can get interviews, but she has real project experience in her experience section on LinkedIn. Um, and and that helped her overcome her a lack of experience challenge, right? And she got a data scientist job from Purolator last month. Michelle, new grad from U of T, got 13 interview, bachelor's um, degree. She doesn't have any experience, but she became a data engineer, which is pretty cool. And as I said, we have students from mining industry. So Julian is a geoscientist. So before she came to the boot camp, she already have analytics experience. She's using different software. He didn't get a lot of interviews, but he get all 3 offers. 2 of them are actually contracting jobs in the mining industry through his connections. Those are short-term contracts. So he did a 5-week contract, and then he became a data scientist at Goldspot, and they're even hiring right now. So we have Jen, mechanical engineer, had 2 years of work experience, not in data at all. He's got 11 interviews during the COVID-19. His challenge is the background, but he's the one that has the strongest personal project portfolio. Most of the project he did was end-to-end, and he got a data engineer job. And we have Todd, who's a small business owner, professional poker player. He only got 1 interview. He got that job. It's a gaming company, and obviously it's related to his past experience. But his biggest challenge is he's been self-employed for many years. Didn't work for big companies, but he got a data scientist job from Clipwire. So I think so. When you go through job search, I think there's ups and downs. Sometimes you get a lot of interviews and all of a sudden there's no interview for the next 3 months. I still think that you should stick to the dream. I think data science career is really booming. We will be able to, like, we are able to report the numbers we have, like, after graduation, the first data science job, like, average salary is like 70 to 75 from our boot camp. But I'm even happier to see that the students, you know in the first few cohorts, now they're getting, really good, decent salaries. So that's what you would expect if you become a data scientist, and of course that's a lot of hard work. So the fact that, Austin can get to 110, it's his own effort. We only helped him at the beginning, but I just want to let you know that, um, if you look at the long term, this is actually really, really promising. And the second student, working at RBC, started as a contractor job. We referred him, and $45 an hour, and then he turned full time about 6 months later. Now, 130K, pretty amazing. 20% bonus. The level is senior manager level, but he's still just a senior data scientist title. Okay. We have another student. He was the first one to get a job right after graduation. Salary wasn't great, 68,000, kind of low, on the low end. And then, like, very soon he got a contractor job at Home Depot, but now he just got a remote job from the US, 140K. Quite amazing. So just want to let you know that it's still very promising. All right, I think that's the end of my presentation. I think I still have some time to answer some questions. So let me get back to the questions, and feel free to ask questions. Is there any suggestions on how to find employers who are willing to sponsor for the immigration application? That I really don't know. Most of the students we have dealt with, they do have, like, at least, they, most of them are Canadian. So yeah, sorry, I couldn't answer this question. It really depends on the companies. My company, BlackBerry, helped me with like the sponsorship, but that was like back in 2011. So yeah. Um, Earlier you mentioned something about the need to understand how marketing campaign works. Can you please elaborate? Do you mean how to analyze marketing campaign results, including the metrics? Do you mean from operational perspective, such as how to use SQL to select the clients, or merging databases to come up with mailing list? Yeah. So um, so for marketing analytics, the data scientists usually build predictive models. The output of their predictive models are basically just the predictions, right? Predicted probability, likelihood of someone who's going to churn or default on their loan, something like that. But that's risk modeling. Um, so for marketing campaign, usually the marketing campaign analyst will, like, take the output from the data science model and load that into a SQL database, and then select the customers they want to target, right? So of course they want to target the customers who have the highest, propensity to leave or to churn. But there are a lot of data scrubbing as well. For example, you need to remove customers who have contacted more than 3 times in the last month, and there are customers who said, "Hey, do not call me." So you have to do a lot of data cleaning, and of course, you need to do segmentation, customer segmentation, to understand the difference, among those high-risk customers. You don't just blindly target all high-risk customers. Um, so you have to do further segmentation. Sometimes you need to do a little bit clustering. A lot of the time it could be Excel, pivot table, related. Yeah, but then you select the customer, right? That's campaign list generation. And after the marketing campaign is launched, you're going to monitor the results, do some A/B testing as well. So that's the closed loop analysis. Data scientists build models, but I think it will be nice if the data scientists understand how the campaign management process work. So that's important. What is Mechanical Turk? Mechanical Turk is crowdsourcing platform. So if you're building machine learning models, let's say you collect data from Twitter, You want to do sentiment analysis, and you have a million tweets you collected in the past 2 days, and you don't have labels because you don't know which tweets are positive, negative, and neutral in terms of sentiment. You have to collect label yourselves. So you can leverage the Mechanical Turk platform. It's really just a human judges, who get paid hourly rate. But it's they work on this platform, so it's very scalable. If you want to uh, label 1 million tweets, it may just take 200 Turkers a few hours to complete, something like that. And it's API driven, so you don't have to do that manually. You just need to prepare the data in the right format in the Excel spreadsheet and upload it, and they will take care of the rest. And of course, they need a lot of training as well. But that's Mechanical Turk service. So for autonomous driving, Tesla, they need to collect a lot of labeled data. There are companies out there, startups called Labelbox, that specialize in labeling AI models, data for AI models. And Mechanical Turk is just one of them, generic, purpose platform that can do more than just, labeling your data, of course. But you have to pay for that. Okay. In our documents, do we share our vision or just tell what we did in the past? Um, Sorry, what do you mean by document? So if you're talking about the project summary, those kind of document, I think you need, yeah, you definitely need to explain what's the objective of this project, like why you want to work on this project, and what's the yeah. So the problem definition, right, and maybe even introduce the industry a little bit, and then you work on your data cleaning, data collection, modeling, and at the end you should probably mention, like, what's the business suggestion, or how can business actually benefit from your model, right? When recruiters screen for candidates, do they just look at our resume, cover letter, or will screen first for questions we answered in the online application portal? Do you recommend how to fill out the forms? Um, it depends. I guess the recruiters, if they're using LinkedIn for recruiting, I have a LinkedIn enterprise version. We need to do recruiting as well to find consultants sometimes. So if you log into the recruiting account, it's a different view. They are going to do filtering based on like some criteria they set. It needs to hit some specific like keywords. They have like filters on years of experience, so that's why like you can easily get filtered out. So it's more like the recruiters proactively looking for someone they want that fit the profile, right? Or if you are sending your profile to the recruiter or resume to the recruiter, um, yeah, they'll filter on your resume. I don't think the recruiters really care about cover letter, to be honest, and they're really busy. They prefer to look at your LinkedIn profile, I guess. But if you have a resume, then they'll look at the resume. Cover letter works better for hiring managers because it's basically something you want to tell the hiring managers, right? I don't think recruiter care that much. Um, and but if it's like application, like you're submitting online application to TD Bank, it's their internal recruiter or HR looking at those resumes, and they probably have some kind of screening tool as well. I don't know what the best way to answer those forms, because it really depends on your background and situation. So yeah, I can't give you uh, any advice on that. Um, what platform do you recommend to present your portfolio? Um, uh, so blogging, using Medium or WordPress. Medium is probably more modern. Um, but in terms of presentation, there are tradition platforms such as PowerPoint or using Prezi. I think there are a lot of presentation. I think the tool you use doesn't really matter. Um, but if it would be great to have an online presence, like some people even just put that on Google Drive and generate a link so people can always open your PDF presentation. Right, that works too actually. But having a blog post or GitHub, whatever, I think that's like kind of formal, which will be good. If we're enrolled in the individual courses instead of diploma program, will there be opportunity to work on real life project? With WeCloud, we have a project only option, so you can choose like to work on a project for 6 months, plus 6 months of career support. But for the part-time individual course, let's say if you want to take a Python course, there's no project support because you need to join project meetings and work with the team really closely. So if you're working part-time, there's no way you can do that. Um, and if you're working on a part-time like course, yeah, that's not included. Yeah. I am doing test data management a few years ago. Is that relevant if I'm applying for data science job? Um, Ed, you probably need to tell me a little bit more about what you actually did in that test data management job. I don't understand the background. So if you can, maybe just explain a little bit more. I can help you. How will the starting date have an impact on the recruiting process? Will a couple of weeks make a difference? Who should we discuss the salary information with, recruiter or hiring manager? Okay. Um, I think I understand the second question. What do you mean by how will the starting date have an impact on the recruiting process? I don't get it. I don't get the question. But let me answer the second question. Who should we discuss the salary information with? It's usually not the hiring manager. So if you are going through a recruiting agency, and of course the recruiter will ask you to fill out a form, but that's what they usually do, or they have one-on-one conversation with you. They understand your salary expectation, right? If your expectation is 100,000 and the hiring company is willing to pay, let's say 80 to 90, so maybe you're already out of the game because your expectation is higher, right? They will ask you like, are you willing to adjust your expectations, something like that. Um, and so because the recruiter will need to present you as a case to the hiring manager, right? So they need to make sure that you have the right skills and experience, but also your salary expectation is not too crazy, right? Or not too low, because sometimes selling being too low, it's just like a signal that if you're applying for a senior data scientist, how come you're only asking for 60,000, right? So that basically means that you probably don't have much experience, or not that confident. Um, so yeah, when you talk to a recruiter, usually they will ask about your expectations before they present you to the company. If you're dealing with the company directly, you sometimes during the HR call, like the first round, they will ask you like, oh, what is your salary expectation? So that helps them to do some filtering, right? If they think your expectation is too high, then they're probably going to pass. And sometimes HR is not going to ask that. Um, Somewhere along the way, like in this third or third round interview, the hiring managers or director may actually ask you. But like some companies will ask you about your salary expectation until they are sure, like they're sort of like they know they're interested in you, then they will ask about it. So yeah, that's usually what happens. Cover letter, will you clarify what is about hiring manager and recruiter roles that make you think hiring manager cares about? Um, when I worked as a hiring manager, I don't really care about cover letter, but some people will tell you that cover letter is important. So it's really hard to tell. It really, some people care about cover letters, some hiring managers don't. Um, I think, but if you want to write a cover letter, that basically it's just a message, you deliver to the hiring manager, to you want to clarify things. For example, if you're career switchers, you want to write a cover letter to tell people, convince people you're hireable. But if your resume is already really strong, I just don't think it's necessary because people basically can just tell based on your experience and they will be interested in you. Um, and yeah, I think recruiters simply don't have time to read cover letter. And that's most of the cases, I think. Yeah. But don't take my word for granted. That's just, I always think that cover letter is not that important, but some people will strongly argue against it. Uh, um, sorry, start from January 15th versus January 30th. What does that mean? Um, you mean the diploma program or your like an offer, like a new job starting date? Milko's asking, right, the starting date of a new job, or can you clarify? Could you please confirm whether machine learning is part of the data science diploma program? Yeah, that's a big part of it. Actually, 5 to 6 weeks are spent on machine learning. Um, yeah, we cover a lot of use cases as well in the data science diploma program. So yeah, we cover Python, SQL, data munging, and then move on to machine learning. We'll spend about 5 to 6 weeks on machine learning, and then we'll spend 3 weeks on big data and cloud computing as well. And after that, student will work on real life client projects after the 12 to 14 weeks, and then get 6 months of career support. Uh, that's how we support the students. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, sorry. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying. Do we deal with the recruiter more during the hiring process for all the logistics, or we just talk to hiring manager for an interview? If you go through a recruiter, then the recruiter will arrange everything. Um, so they don't charge you, but they will arrange the interview calls. And yeah, so they will keep you informed during every stage of the interview. You don't deal with the company directly. It's all arranged through the recruiter. And yeah, because if you apply for a job directly and you to TD Bank, you're in TD's database already. Recruiter won't get help, won't get paid because that means because it's like the um, like who provided this candidate, right? So if the candidate applied for this TD job directly himself or herself, then TD will consider that, oh, he's in my database. So the recruiters are need to present someone who's not in their database, and then they will get paid. When is the next info day? Sorry, I have to look up Meetup. Just give me one quick second. Um, but feel free to ask other questions, and I'll get back to you on the date for the info day. So it will be December 28th. It's on our Meetup. It's called um, Toronto Data Science and Big Data Meetup, or you can search for WeCloudData. You'll find a talk on introduction to data science diploma program. And then we have a interview preparation session on January 6th. January 6th, interview tips. Yeah. If you're interested in like watching the videos, we've recorded some videos in the past, so you can go to our diploma course page, and there's introduction to diploma program, data science learning path. I've done a similar presentation before regarding the project portfolio. So yeah, check them out. Here's the link. There you go. If it's so there's a question like regarding the starting date. Will that make a difference in decision making from the hiring manager's point of view? For those cases, are they willing to wait for the right candidate, or if it is just a couple of weeks, or they have to move on? This really depends. So I think some companies are willing to wait. For example, I've hired candidates who said, can I go like I want a vacation in between jobs, or I need to go back to my home country, before I start my job. I waited for a month. So if I really like the candidate, of course I'm going to wait, unless it's a contracting job, which means you're hiring contractors and because you want to meet the project requirements, right? The project needs to move on, and someone on the team left, and you need someone to backfill, and those are usually more urgent. Then you probably wouldn't want to wait. But if it's a full-time data science job, I think most people will be willing to wait, 2 more weeks. That shouldn't be a big deal. Yeah, um, yeah, yeah. That shouldn't be a big deal if they're really interested in you. Uh, but if you're asking about decision making, I mean, let's say if company give you an offer and they usually give you a few days, right, to make a decision. I think 2 weeks is just too long. It just means like the lack of interest or you're seriously considering other opportunities. Unless you're the only candidate they're interested in, um, yeah, I don't think, most company will want to wait that long. Like 2 weeks is probably too long, but within a week should be fine, if you can make a decision within a week. Any other questions? I think we have 10 minutes left, so I'll be around if you have any questions. Will the program be online considering the current pandemic? Yeah, the program is online. It works perfectly. So, um, yeah, so you get a few benefits by doing online bootcamp. First of all, you don't have to commute. You save 2 hours of whatever drive or TTC, transit. Um, so you sleep more, or you get more time to work on projects, and you can always watch recording. That's something that's not available during live classes, like offline based training. You don't get to watch recordings. The only downside, some people may be concerned about like the interactivity or, working with the TAs and instructors. That's not a big problem though, because our teaching assistant, we have 3 teaching assistants, 3 instructors. So they're always online on Slack. You can, yeah, office hours is pretty much 9:30 to 5:30. You can always ask questions. When you start to work on real company projects, you get laptops from those companies. You join regular meetings. You're just like, a real employees working on real life projects. So it's usually remote as well. So yeah, we have some clients in the US, so there's no way you can fly there to work. So it's always remote. Some companies before COVID-19, the students will actually work in their office, uh, but remote is usually fine. Well, what was the name of the machine learning course that was more advanced? We have um, a, a course called Applied Machine Learning. This course is um, just it's just our regular machine learning course. We don't have a more advanced level. The next course on learning path is big data for data scientists. So the difference between these two are applied machine learning course teaches you all the machine learning algorithms, and you work on I believe 2 mini projects and 1 portfolio project. So it teaches you the necessary machine learning knowledge and skills and cover some use cases. The big data course, however, is a lot more challenging because it assumes that you know machine learning, and it teaches you how to scale machine learning and also build an end-to-end pipeline. So machine learning is maybe 20% of the work, but you have to work on real-time streaming. You have to work on data pipelines. You have to work with cloud. You need to deploy machine learning models using SageMaker and MLflow. Um, you need to work with databases and Apache Spark. So um, that's the big data course in the data science curriculum. Um, will you define Docker and Kubernetes at a high level? So yeah, so Docker is a containerization um, technology, and Kubernetes is just a orchestration tool. What that means is um, So let's say a data scientist is going to write, all the machine learning models on on his laptop, and he's using Python 2.7, or let's say Python 3.6, um, and um, and he wants to deploy the machine learning model in production. But on the production server, um, it's running, let's say, Java, or it's running a different version of Python, let's say Python 3.8, or could be an older version, Python 2.7. So things may break because the environment is not reproducible. That's one of the reasons why Docker can help, and because it isolates the environment. So you always just you can train and deploy the models using Docker containers, like a virtual machine, but more lightweight. And so even if you have TensorFlow 2.0 and Python 3.6 on your laptop, and on the production server you only have TensorFlow 1.0 and Python 2.7, it's still fine, and you won't run into problem because everything is isolated in a Docker container. I guess that's one way to put this. And Kubernetes is for DevOps. Data scientists don't need to be expert on it. Um, but there's some other tools like ML, like Kubeflow, that may become popular in the near future, which is for ML engineering, ML ops. So understanding that will be helpful. Yeah, but I would start with Docker. Don't worry too much about Kubernetes if you're just getting started. Knowing Docker will be helpful. How often should we follow up with recruiters HR? If we have not heard from them for a week, let's say, can we connect to the recruiter who interviewed? Can we connect to the recruiter who interviewed you? If they do not want to connect with you, does that tell something? Yeah. So on LinkedIn, if they don't respond, a lot of times it means they're busy, or maybe they have, you know, if you have that read status and they have read message, probably means they're not interested in your profile, like your background. Um, or after you talk to them, hear back from them, yeah, feel free to follow up. I think usually a few days or a week or two is the right like time interval to reconnect with them. Um, it takes some persistence sometimes. If they're not interested, maybe they're not interested. But like after you've made some significant changes to your portfolio, um, first time you're sending resume, maybe the second time you can send them your blog post, or it may work out, but it's not always going to work out though. So yeah, you just want to need to make sure you talk to more and more recruiters. I think eventually it will work out. Yeah. And after you talk to 10 recruiters, nobody is interested in you, then you have to come back and think about like what skills you're lacking, like why it's not working. Maybe ask for some like on the call, like you can ask the recruiter, can they provide some suggestions? And obviously there's some things you need to fix, like resume, experience, skills. Um, yeah, and most of the time for recruiters, most of the time it's experience. And for hiring managers, sometimes it's the skills, right? You don't have the right skills, you don't have the right experience. So those are the things you need to work on. Yeah. Any other questions? No problem. Thank you. Thanks everyone. Thanks for making make to this event. It's my pleasure to share my experience. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next event on the 28th. If you're interested in learning more about the diploma program, and on January the 6th, if you want to learn more about interview tips. And I hope you guys happy holidays. Thanks, everyone.